Hey guys, this is Tauna, and today we have some new news from some huge changes coming to Magic next year. That's going to be very interesting, and I'm going to be interested to see how you guys kind of take it. Plus, some more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles news. So I'm going to go through all of it. This stuff was announced earlier on today. Some very interesting stuff, and I think that these changes would have been really, really well received when they initially announced all of the stuff that was happening next year, because I feel like these kind of help with that. Maybe it's just me, maybe it's what I feel, but you let me know what you guys think. So hopefully this does relieve some of the stress that people were having. But before we do get into that, make sure you guys subscribe. We're trying to hit 25,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We only have like a month or just over 2 months left to go, so I'm really hoping that we're able to hit that. That's my big goal, and then from there, I don't know, let's continue on. Let's see how high we can get. This is the best spot for you guys to get breaking news and stuff, instant speed news. So let's go through. The first one here is some minor clarification on the sneak mechanic, because we saw the actual reminder text and everything like that on the Raphael's technique, but from there people weren't sure entirely how it works with creatures. Now it's been confirmed that they do enter tapped and attacking if they are a creature, very similar to ninjutsu. So it's kind of like a fixed ninjutsu, right? Except it works with commanders innately because of the fact that you are just casting the commander for an alternate cost. However, it also doesn't ignore additional costs, so command attacks, which is great because, we all know how broken Yuriko is. It also casts the creatures out instead of cheating them out. So there's a bunch of different things that can potentially trigger with there, as well as the fact that it allows them to be able to put it on instants and sorceries and stuff. So there's apparently 11 different techniques, like this Raphael's technique here. So we'll have to see what the rest of them are. They said that they're mostly around ninja stuff this time around, but they can potentially use this mechanic. It's just sneak. They can use this in any sets kind of going forward. It doesn't need to be just, Ninja Turtles. It's a very easy mechanic for them to bring forward to any kind of thieves, rogues, etc. And they also briefly talked about why they didn't use the villain tag. They basically just said, we didn't want to, we wanted to kind of keep that within the Spider-Man and the Marvel stuff. So I don't know. I don't mind them not using the villain tag, because I think that it's more interesting to come up with different tags that are more interesting for characters. Having Rhino be a berserker or something like that would have been really cool in my opinion. All right, so the newly announced stuff was set sizes. We had the confirmation, which I actually did a video on a couple of days about, the fact that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set was going to be smaller, but we had confirmation of it being smaller. There's only going to be confirmed 190 cards. However, this time around, they said specifically that the set was designed around being a smaller set, rather than like Spider-Man, which was designed to be even smaller set to begin with, and then expanded out into the 190 cards. This was designed around the 190 cards to begin with, which makes it, in my opinion, a lot better, because, we all know, we've played the Spider-Man set. We all know that the Spider-Man set was lacking a whole bunch of that flavor. It felt like a whole bunch of cards were kind of shoved in there to kind of fill it out and stuff like that. So instead of it being fluffed out to do that, then we actually start with that small set. Now, why is this new? You're probably wondering, Tauna, have you just clickbaited me? No, this is new because it's very interesting. They're starting to play around, and it's been confirmed by Blake, I believe it is, from the WotC community team, that they are actually playing around with the size of sets. As previously, besides Assassin's Creed and the Aftermath sets, they have typically kept the sets roughly the same size, right? Usually we have that kind of 280-ish cards. This time around, though, they're going to be making it so that the set is actually smaller here, and they can kind of play around with the size of it instead of it being kind of strictly, setting it to that 280. I don't mind this. I like it. I think it's interesting, especially with sets like, Ninja Turtles, where if they had have gone to try and make it into a full set, it would have felt like, they've kind of shoved too much in it. So this way they can kind of keep it around the size that's going to work easier for it, which is great in my opinion. Now, the other thing is, for 2026, there's not actually going to be as many new cards as a lot of people expected, or at least as much as I expected. So Blake confirmed that there's only going to be 120 more cards next year in 2026 than in 2025. This is purely for standard sets, right? I'm not talking about Commander decks and stuff like that. So now that means that there is likely going to be at least likely going to be either 2 smaller sets in 2026, in addition to Turtles, or there's going to be 1 smaller set, which is Turtles, and then 1 medium-sized set. So, like, you know, something around like the 220-ish mark or something like that. So the math is basically each set, like the smaller sets, are roughly 80 cards less. For 7 sets, we'd be looking at roughly 280 additional cards next year. However, because of that, you know, if you math it down, then 3 smaller sets with 80 cards less means about roughly 160 less, because you got to consider as well that Spider-Man came out this year and it was a smaller set already. So we're already taking that into account. So there's 2 sets that are coming out that are roughly, you know, going to figure out how it kind of works. It's going to be roughly, you know, either 1 small set like the Turtles and then 1 medium set, or just 2 smaller sets overall, 2 other smaller sets. So likely this means either the Hobbit's going to be a smaller set, which I think is the one that makes the most sense, right? Like Hobbit, the book was not as big as the Lord of the Rings book. They still managed to etch out a lot of stuff from Lord of the Rings. And given the fact that we don't know if there's going to be Commander precons with it, they could roll that stuff into the main set, and therefore that could be a full set. Who knows? I doubt that it is going to be Reality Fracture, because that's a big capstone for event. Strixhaven's possible, I guess. Yeah, I think Strixhaven's possible for them to make it into like a smaller set, given the fact that it's already also around like the 5 color combos, but we'll see. Star Trek as well could be a smaller set because of the fact that Star Trek is just overall like there's heaps of content there for them to pull from, right? Like you've got all of the years of Star Trek, all of the TV shows, potentially the movies as well, like the animated series too, but it's also like a riskier set, so we'll see. At the moment, I would bet that Hobbit and Star Trek are going to be smaller sets, or the Hobbit is going to be a medium-sized set, so a small and then a medium-sized set for one of them. I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see exactly how well it works. Although, no, it can't be 1 small and then 1 medium. That wouldn't work. It could be like, yeah, 1 small that's not the Turtle. So like, you know, yeah, we'll have to see as to how it works. My assumption is that it's going to be either Hobbit or Star Trek that are smaller, not going to be like Strixhaven, because if Strixhaven's smaller or Reality Fracture's smaller, then people are going to be just really, really pissed off about it. So I also think that, in my opinion, Wizards of the Coast really kind of fucked up with this, because while I don't think that this is necessarily a bad thing, I just think that they really, really should have announced this when they announced the 7 sets per year, right? Like when they come up with that big banner there of here is 7 sets per year, and there's going to be, you know, 4 Universes Beyond sets, etc. I feel like people really kind of jumped on that, and definitely, you know, I did as well. Like, what the hell? That's a whole lot of stuff, and that's, in my opinion, too much Universes Beyond. But if they had announced that 3 of those Universes Beyond sets were going to be smaller, for example, then I think it would have just gone down a whole lot better, right? Hopefully, you know, the sets are smaller, which would be good, but there's also going to be a smaller time between sets, regardless of if the sets are smaller or not. But there is going to be less cards coming out than I think that we first expected, which is already really, really nice. Obviously, you know, 4 Universes Beyond sets a year is still too much, but realistically, if, you know, 3 of them are smaller sets, then that's going to be, you know, 1 big set and then 3 small sets. So that's realistically only like 2.5 Universes Beyond sets. So I doubt that doubt that Marvel, not Avengers, Marvel Heroes or whatever they called it, is a smaller set, because that seems to be like their big set for the year. But the 3 other ones definitely could be, and then we look at like, you know, 2.5 Universes Beyond sets in the year instead. But let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys had a wonderful day, and goodbye.